because I gotta start this show manually. This will be fun. How accustomed I've become to bit-focused buttons. Hey everybody, hopefully you're doing well. I am John. Thanks for coming along for the ride. When I try and launch bit-focused buttons, it says port 8089er is already running on some application, which likely means that I need to quit a bunch of stuff. What could be consuming that port? Hopefully not vmix. It is likely vmix, by the way. Anyway, I'm not actually too sure. Is there a place in Windows where you can see what applications are using what ports? You would think that that would be possible. Sounds like I need to ask the greater interwebs that question. Let's go ahead and jump over to our magical search engine. Is there a place on a Windows 11 machine where I can see what apps are using which ports? Yes, command prompt will do this for you. For example, if you want to see all active, open command prompt and type in netstat space -ANO. Oh, alrighty. So this tells me which IP addresses are using what ports. I need to be a little more specific, it looks like. Something. Okay, so I can be more specific. So we can say that same thing, netstat space -ANO, and then a line, sorry, space line, space find str space, and then whatever port you're trying to find. So right here looks like something local. This isn't really helping. Established 70.50. Curious, because I think did I close down? I think I closed by accident Discovery Service. I didn't mean to. Anyway, which I don't know how this is all running, because and I should definitely listen to my show, right? Find out why is my video that okay. Am I too quiet? Am I too quiet? Hey, jump in the chat and tell me if I'm too quiet. I think I am. I'm gonna make this a little louder. Actually, I'm gonna make this a little louder. Okay, here we go. Let's see. All right, here I am now on my monitor making adjustments. So let's find out if I'm too quiet. I think I'm too quiet, honestly. I'm gonna leave that little monitor on for a second. Whoa! I'm gonna make this a little louder. That is a whole lot louder. Actually, I'm gonna make this a little louder. Okay, here we go. All right, we're gonna wait, find out. I'm sending a lot more signal now to vmix, so. All right, yeah, that sounds a lot better. I don't have to crank the volume in order to hear myself. All right, so we're trying to figure out who is taking port 8089er, because that is the port that bit-focused buttons runs on, and TCP port 8089er is already in use by another application and cannot continue. So that tells me that it's being used, but it doesn't tell me what program is using it. So fast name. So there's another one here. Let's just copy this and paste. Nope, that did not help. TCP port 77.50 port 8089er. That is being used. So let's shut down some things here, like remote NDI. That does not, that stinking virus. Buttons. Nope, that wasn't it. Let's see what else we got here. We got webcam is up and running. Don't need that running, right? Nope, we're still going here. What could be taking that port. I don't even know what that is. What is that? Oh, that's funny. Okay, exit that. NVIDIA, MSI. I can close this. Still functioning. I haven't closed the program yet. That's taking port. And like, come on, BitFocus. Why can't you take a different port? Right? Why do you have to have that specific port? So, still functioning. Companion is not running on this computer. I don't see anything else in here that I can shut down without killing some processes. Oh, look. NDI remote just kicked on again, like the virus it is. Yeah, there's nothing else there that tells me. So this is not helpful. How do I figure out which app it is? Start button, task manager, details, the PID, sort by process. Scroll until you find the PID number that you saw in Netstat. Okay, so that must be this one, 106652. Ah, task manager, performance. Where did it say for me to look at that? Go to details. Details. This is fun. Oh, here it is. Details. All right. Sort by PID number. And then the number, what was it? 106652. 10. It's not here. Let's try something else. 25808. 25808. It is Brave. It is my browser that's taking that. So let's go ahead and end that task. Are you sure you want to end Brave? Yeah, let's go ahead and kill it. And then open buttons. That was not it. So if I run this again, it's currently gone. 106652 is the only remaining port which is not here. 106652. vMix Socials. How fascinating. How fascinating indeed. That worked. Well, that was fun. So let's go ahead and fire up buttons. All right, this all started because now I'm going to start socials because it will take something else. Is there not a place? Oh, there, web interface. Can I change this to something else? That's so funny. It also takes 8089. Oh yeah, and now my buttons are all back. Well, that was so fun. Okay, so here we go, everybody. Here is what we learned. What we learned was my power-up sequence for this show is important because vMix Socials and BitFocus buttons both operate on the same port. Now, evidently, buttons can function as long as you turn it on first and socials second. But if you kill BitFocus buttons while using socials, it will no longer allow itself to use that port. So, lesson learned. We have logged back in. I can fire my... Can I fire this? Send? I'm going to reopen socials. View. Okay. It says that I have one, but I don't see the message in the queue. That's interesting. So let's just try and type something inside of YouTube. I'm going to write ahoy once again. And let's see what happens. You are currently signed out of your Keystone AV Networks account. Oh, really? I beg to differ. I just signed in from that. Ah, it's probably because I killed that process. Okay, back to socials. And it is not showing. This is strange. It shows two messages active. If I click view, it pulls up socials, but it doesn't show anything on the list. So let's go ahead and restart socials. This is so funny. Is there a way, there must be, a way to change the port that you're using inside BitFocus buttons? Certainly there's a way to do that, right? Because it can't force me to use a specific port, or it shouldn't. User management, edit users, nope. Configuration data, nope. Services, connections, let's go ahead and nothing in here. Open source licenses and licenses, so it doesn't actually show me. Hey, we can bring you over for this fun little venture into the woods. So connection, perhaps it's here. Nope, that's a different port. Connections, studio monitor's off. That's why I'm getting that error. I can fire it up real quick and stop that from happening. Nothing, nothing, nothing. No network devices, Stream Deck, positions, shared. Nope. That is interesting. There's got to be a way where we can change the port that we're using, right? Configuration. All right, well, we will venture down that path one day, but today is not that day. So I'm going to open vMix Socials again. It appears that I can't change the port inside vMix Socials, which I think is crazy, because what if this port is being used, guys? You know, like what if I'm already using 8089er on my computer? Who knows? So that's a shame. I will on yes, BitFocus buttons. How do I change the port from 8089er to something else that isn't being used? I'm also going to rerun that command line that I had that showed me all my ports being used, because I want to pick something near 8089er, but I don't want 80. I actually don't see where it shows that 8089er is being used, which is strange because it should show it now because I've got two things using it. But perhaps the good news is I don't see anything else either. So, oh, here it is, 8089er. So 8088 is being used, and 8089er is being used twice. 8099er is being used. Say that 10 times fast. So I could use like 8087 or something like that if we have the option. The port you're seeing is likely the web GUI the app uses for web-based browser. Quit the companion app, systray quit, relaunch it from the start, launcher window. You'll see a drop-down network interface. Next to it should be what port? Oh. No, that's the launcher. They're referring to the launcher of BitFocus Companion. Not Companion. Not Companion. BitFocus buttons. All right. Fully quit buttons. Go to the launcher window, look for network interfaces or edit listener addresses. There should be a port or a field in there. Click and start launch. Okay, so fully quit buttons, relaunch the app from the start menu. In the launcher window that appears, which is this thing, it doesn't give me a spot though to change the port. Matter of fact, it demands that I have 8089er open. You would think it would be inside the launcher, but maybe not. Because this is inside, this is the web interface, right? So 8089er is just the web interface for that. Change it to a free port, launch, click start. Alternate changing inside the app. Go to settings, System, network, editor, or advanced. So it doesn't sound like they know. Settings. Configuration. I probably have to import the configuration to change the port from here. Maybe it's under services. Port. I'm looking for post. Post. No port. That's a shame. It's the JavaScript that launches. All right, well, this is not what today's show is really about, folks. And so, oh, hey, there's a new stable version. I'll do that after the show because I learned my lesson. Don't try and restart things while the show is underway, because that's going to be a problem for everybody. Okay, so today's show is about, oh yeah, and so socials isn't going to work. So I have to keep an eye on the chat, a separate eye on the chat. 2 eyes, as long as I can spare them. An eye on the chat, just so that make sure you guys aren't trying to tell me stuff and I'm not listening. Okay, so here we go. Got the chat open. Today is about BlackMagic and their announcements at NAB. We had a great trip to Vegas. My coworker Dave and I have gone twice now on behalf of our nonprofit to try and see what is up and coming in the broadcast space. And we've really enjoyed going. It's several days away from our families, which is a bit of a stressor. But if we can make it happen, we like to go and take a peek around the show floor to kind of give us an idea and a projection. We build our deployment map and our purchase map based on what we see at NAB. Now, there's a thing that happens at NAB, which is relevant to the BlackMagic conversation. There's a thing that happens at NAB where companies sometimes show up and make announcements about products that don't actually exist. And, you know, they're not calling it a bait and switch. And that's not kind, because I think that the intentions are not necessarily malicious or anything like that. It's mostly that they don't know what they don't know, and they don't know if it's going to be real or not. And so we have to go into NAB with kind of a, you know, an understanding that sometimes products that are talked about, people are super excited about, don't actually exist in the real world. And that is the case currently with the BlackMagic line. If you've watched Grant's update that he did, I think right before NAB, so that would be like early April, which we're already into June, by the way, which is insane. But anyways, lots to talk about there. And I'll talk about my trip that I was away last week in Toronto. So that was amazing. That was so much fun. I'll tell you more about that in a second. But back in early April, BlackMagic made an announcement that said, hey, here are some upcoming products for the 2026 lineup. And the major announcement, Kat is way out of the bag already, Kat has found a new home by now, is that everything is going to 2110. All of their product lines, they've had to basically revamp them. They can't just enable 2110 on their products, but they have to build new products that will talk this new protocol. And we've talked a lot about 2110 and NDI on this channel, but to give you a general quick overview, if I can do quick, which many of you probably are laughing at this point, if I could try and do a quick little overview of 2110 versus NDI, it might sound something like this. NDI is the video over IP standard for most small to mid-sized deployments. These are people that are contingent on budget and are looking for exceptional results, but don't have the bandwidth to basically do zero latency from top to bottom, which is the major claim of a 2110 product, is that it is heavy on the network, extremely heavy on the network compared to NDI, and also it has a fair bit of other data that's coming along with it, including like color depth and a bunch of things. And so NDI, for example, has just recently been getting into 10-bit color, whereas 2110's been there for a while, as far as I understand. And allowing for professional color grading to happen at the live production level. Sometimes, if you're just into setting up 3 cameras and a keyboard, that used to be a phrase that I used several years ago when I worked for a canine/aviation company that used to, we'd set up quickly, do the photo shoot, do the video shoot, do the live stream, take down quickly, and roll out. One day in and out. Okay, think hotel lobbies. Press conferences, think after game, athlete interviews, where you just need 1 camera and a microphone, or 2 cameras for some dynamic, and then a microphone, and you're off to the races. And you can integrate all of this stuff into the single channel. Live IMAG, that's not really the priority in most cases. But then there's this weird crossover section where you're doing live auditorium stuff, but then you're also sending that signal out to a streaming platform as well. And that was, especially during COVID, which is now 6 years behind us, praise Alleluia, that was when the churches got into this, and real time really mattered, because we still had people in seats, and we had a lot of people now tuning in online. And what COVID did in the religious space, not just restricted to one religion, but in the religious space, is that it kind of opened the gateway to allowing people to see who you are, what you do, before ever stepping into your auditorium, which was kind of one of the gatekeeper / barriers that people had when it was to finding their communities. And so what happened, it wasn't all good, but what happened during COVID and right near the end is most congregations that I am aware of had some level of streaming capability introduced onto their ministry offerings. We'll put it that way. So some people went full in, and some people put 1 camera up and attached their soundboard to it, and it is what it is. Okay, and there's a range between professional broadcast and we're doing what we can to get the message out. That was kind of the broad paint with the brush type of idea. Okay. Their NDI hit that sweet spot really easily because it wasn't coax, which in traditional senses is still fairly expensive. I mean, it's not in the broadcast world, but for a church with a budget of $2,000, it's pretty expensive. And you're going to spend the majority of that money on a PTZ camera, maybe. Maybe you'll spend, maybe get a box camera as well for $600. Maybe I don't know. Maybe something. Maybe you'll get back then we were doing minis, Bird Dog minis, and so you plug your JVC camera, HDMI into that, and you generate NDI, and you send that out to vMix, and you spend your money on vMix. $600 for a vMix license. I don't know. However you want to do it. NDI hit that sweet spot right there, and there was a time where NDI cameras we couldn't keep them stocked on the shelf because that protocol was so flexible. We plug it into a PoE port, it throws it on the network, and we can send that out to our viewers at home. Many congregations were not doing also that image on the screens. So you think of a auditorium and you have a speaker on the stage, but your auditorium's so big that you need to also project their image onto screen so the people at the back can see you. Think like Joel Osteen and those types of productions where it's all about the cameras. NDI really hit that sweet spot, especially in a non-IMAG situation, because it enabled people to get to use their already limited network infrastructure to get their thing out to the internet. It got really strange, though, because you do get to this point where you do have to have a conversation about 2110 when you start doing IMAG and you start doing professional broadcast, because timing becomes everything. And that is, I think, BlackMagic, where the conversation about BlackMagic has really come to a head. About 5 years ago, I did a show, several shows probably, but I did at least one show saying, why did BlackMagic pick 2110 over NDI? Don't they know that most of us don't have a 2110 network? And that sentiment was true up until about a year ago. I was confused why you would pick a network-heavy protocol over a versatile network video protocol like NDI to achieve your video outbound goals. And then I had a conversation with somebody who said, I'm pretty sure that BlackMagic is trying to legitimize their products in the broadcast world. Back when I started with BirdDog, about a year into my employment at BirdDog, we hired a guy out of England who, a wonderful person, by the way, and he worked with us for about a year and a half, or maybe 2 years, and then decided he would like to try something a little more challenging for his skill set, which I fully agreed with him. I hated losing him because he was an amazing employee, but the guy needed to be challenged in different ways, and so I agree with him on that. He decided that he was going to go off and do something else, but before he left, he said something to me that has always rattled around in my brain. He said, whenever I go into professional studios, and this is a previous job he had as a salesman, he said, and if there were certain customers, if you suggested BlackMagic, they would laugh you out of the meeting, basically saying, you're not selling anything to these guys because BlackMagic was not considered professional equipment. I kind of took that as like, okay, that's an interesting industry standard, industry people telling me something about the product line. And long ago, BlackMagic had, quality assurance problems and whatever, but those days are like 10 years ago. Okay, so it's a different company now, I think, and it's a different mentality. But about 5 years ago, I had this conversation with this guy who basically said, you have to be really careful about what you say about what product lines you're talking about, because if it's not Sony, Panasonic, if it's not Ross, if it's not Grass Valley, this product line of things, you have to be careful. If you say something like BlackMagic, they'll know you're not serious to them. Okay, that's their perception about BlackMagic products. Anyway, so that's always kind of stayed with me. And over the past 3 years now that I've been working with this nonprofit and kind of transitioning away from my previous employment, I have been watching BlackMagic pretty closely, because when I walked into the soundstage in Brentwood, they were already using BlackMagic products. They were using a A10 Mini video switcher and a couple other things that were BlackMagic. And we changed out for the 2ME Constellation HD, which is a great little product, and we changed out for a couple of BlackMagic cameras, which were better than the DSLRs that we were using at the time. And so we were able to transition over to single cable connection and on and on and on and on, and we'll talk about some of that in a minute, about their new product line. But we were able to kind of transition out into all of these new BlackMagic products. So it has become clearer to me over the past 3 years why BlackMagic picked 2110 over NDI. Because BlackMagic is trying to get into the space where Ross is, where Grass Valley is. They're trying to get into the space where professional video switching equipment is. And they are not doing necessarily a lot of push on the AV over IP protocol. Instead, those other companies are focusing on, the thing that is their kind of bread and butter, which is all of this SDI routing, video switching, all of that stuff. Hey, Randy, good to see you. I see you in the chat. For some reason, I am unable to... Oh, it's here. Did this work? Ahoy! Yay! All right. For some reason, vMix Social is magically working again. So, thumbs up. Good job. Good job. Gremlins, you got it to work. So, hey, Randy, good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. So BlackMagic has been entering into this space, and I think that little crossroads that we're seeing happen between professional video equipment and small to mid-size companies trying to stream, churches, schools, blah, 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 blah. I think they're trying to make a go at being the 2110 solution for professional installations. And I can confirm that I know of installations that use BlackMagic now that I would consider pro. All right, big name companies that use BlackMagic in various places in their installation. And so it's starting to creep. I think that they're starting to win some ground, market share, however you want to say it. They're starting to win some of that conversation about, is BlackMagic real? Is it quality equipment? Is it going to last me the next 5 to 10 years? All of those things. So we saw some interesting things at NAB. And their big push right now is the 2110 integration into their their product line that they already have available. However, they have launched many new products because the previous product line can't handle the amount of data that is required to do 2110. Now, some of their products already do 2110, and it's a simple firmware upgrade that they're needing to use that you have to apply in order to get this functionality. But their big announcement was a lot of these products are now doing the 2110 protocol, and I want to just focus on a few of these things that we're in particular interested in, and I'm going to touch on Fairview Live as well, just to be good stewards of our time. So here we go. Let me share my screen so that you can see the Studio Bridge. This product is designed to bring to supply a couple of things it does, but our focus at Safe Harbor would be to use one unit to provide power, and that's the big dog underneath, so the 10G power, PWR, to bring power to your studio cameras, but also to be able to use this unit, as I understand it, as I witnessed at NAB, and I hope that this is true, as an encoder or a decoder for your products around the installation. Now, let me give you a scenario as to what I saw and then where I would use this. I can give you a brief little tour as well of this product because I want you to see it. Studio Bridge 10G power. This takes in studio cameras, okay? It replaces the BlackMagic Studio unit, which is the converter that provides power, video, audio, talkback, tally, all those things, and converts it to a Ethernet cord, which then you run to the camera and you plug the camera in via Ethernet port, and it turns on and does all the things. This basically replaces that studio unit, and you get 8 of them in one unit. This product has had a few price changes since its announcement, as you might... Oh, whoops. Oh, this is cool. It shows me everything. Okay. So, has a few price changes, but comes in under $3,000, which is the price of 2.5 studio converters. So, thumbs up to that this unit can do this. And then it has QSFP ports, which they're actually calling 100 gigabit 2110 IP video ports. They're QSFP 28s, which is 100 gigs per port. So we can plug this into redundant switches and get 100 gigs redundantly, or we can plug this into the same switch and get a 200 gig backbone, which is the type of data we're talking about when we get to 2110 installations. You would really want to run this to a QSFP core. Those are not cheap. They're about $10,000 to start with Netgear. However, BlackMagic has announced their own 8-port QSFP 100 gig port switch, which we'll talk about briefly, and we have in previous shows. Also, this reminds me that I'm just going to move this over here because I want to keep an eye on the chat. So this guy will allow you to plug in 8 cameras. Now, we don't have 8 cameras. We're probably never going to have 8 studio cameras in our production because that's not the nature of our ministry. However, we might have 3. So what does that mean then for the other 5 ports on this thing? Well, what I saw at NAB was that you can also send 2110 signals out of these ports. And I don't know if this is true because it doesn't say it here on the screen. However, it does say that means you can plug in 8 separate 10G Ethernet Ultra HD devices. and supply 90 watts of power on each of them. Okay, they make a 2110 converter from 2110 to HDMI, which you would then replace your BlackMagic SDI to HDMI for your monitors, for your iMag. You could replace those with 2110 to HDMI devices. And from our from our, how old am I? 41? I'm in my early 40s. From my perspective, there was very little latency from camera, which was a studio camera, mind you, to decoder. So it was very impressive, and they were doing this over their BlackMagic switch that they announced as well. So 2110, 8 channels of it, and then your backbone, your video backbone, can be up to 200. They also have a smaller version of this, which is just going these 2110 ports. You can run a 2110 100 gig to a camera, which they just announced, that has that QSFP28 port on it, and you can plug 2 cameras into this unit and get them into the 2110 system that way. Let me scroll down here though to where is the yes, we want to look at all this stuff. I want to find 2110 IP converters. Okay, let me talk through the rest of these just so that we know. So this is the not this one. Sorry. I thought that was it, but it's not. Here we go. 2110 to HDMI. And you can also do whatever this is. 2110 to 4K out, HDMI 4K out. So this one allows us to take 2110 in. All right. And is there another picture? Yes. So that's just straight up an Ethernet cord, which you would plug into that Studio Bridge power. It would power this unit, and then on the other side, and deliver 2110, and on the other side, decode HDMI. So then you plug that into your screen, and then whatever the latency is on your screen is going to basically be the additional latency that you get. I was very impressed with this. I thought this was a really cool way of doing this, which means that if your infrastructure, if you have Ethernet to all of your endpoints, you can basically then run 2110, as long as it's a 10 gig cable, you could run 2110 throughout your installation and just buy these little throwdown boxes. Now, they're not cheap. I think they were for like $5.95 or something like that. Don't quote me on that. We can look for pricing in a minute. So that little converter box would plug into that bridge, and then on the bridge, you just tell it, this is I want you to send this output signal, which could be the final program from your video switcher or a separate program from your second engine, whatever you wanted to do. You could send that to a confidence monitor inside of your own system. It doesn't really matter. When it's ones and zeros, you can send it wherever you want it to go. And in a multicast scenario, it's, the ideal. They also make 2110 to SDI. If you've got SDI monitors, there you go. That would be great. They have a lot of these converters that do, you can do like scaling. So this one in particular is, provides power, 2110 IP with power, so you can bring in SDI signals. So let's say you don't want to change out your entire infrastructure. You're happy with your Constellation HD, which is all SDI. So maybe we just want to convert we want to convert certain signals to 2110, and we want to use the bridge, and we want to use the HDMI converters on our screen. You'd get a unit like this that would basically stand in the middle and convert any SDI signals to 2110 that you need to be 2110. Probably wouldn't. If you're going to go all in, though, you might want to just go all in and not have to do something in the interim or whatever. It depends on your budget, which really is. $5.95 is comparable to any other NDI to HDMI converter. I expected a higher price. Let me then verify that for you, because I want to be sure that I'm speaking accurately. So B&H Photo, I believe that they B&H Photo, yoink, yoink. So this is the HDMI, the Ultra 10 gig Ethernet converter, boink, and paste please. Do we have these yet? Oh, does B&H not have BlackMagic stuff? Yeah, they do. Converter 10G. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Oh wow, 2110 to even cheaper. Boom, baby, $339. Let's go. So you can do PoE and send it a single cable, power this unit with PoE, and then output 4K, and it's $339 plus tax. And if you're a nonprofit, it's $339. So that's pretty cool. It's a decoder only. Okay, it says converter, but it's a decoder only. So you're not going to send it an HDMI signal and convert it to 2110. But it is, a single use, and it's a 2110 converter. That's pretty awesome, and it's available for purchase today, which I'm very happy about. Some of this stuff already being ready to go, because they were saying mid-July, and some of these products that they've announced are already coming out. So cool stuff there. All right, so that's the converter, and we would probably buy 2 of those, because we have BlackMagic converters, SDI to HDMI on the back of our televisions, 75-inch televisions, and they do a great job of basically zero latency. But if we were going to go to a 2110, we would buy the power bridge, and we would buy those, and we would send our signal that way. It also means, though, that we got to get our SDI signal to be 2110 if we're not going to convert the whole thing over, like with the purchase of a 2110 Constellation. But in order to do that, you have to have all of your signals being 2110, because there are no SDI ports on the back of that unit. So we'll get to that in a minute. So here are the converters, the power converters that we just talked about. This is an interesting SFP version of the IP converter. So you can have this going to switches, to, I don't know, cameras, I guess. Not too sure. There are probably other products that have cages on them as well, if you're doing SDI throughout your installation. And then you get your standard converters as well. So 2110 up, down, and cross convert. If you need to change the resolution, they make products for that now. Presentation converter. This is like an under-the-desk unit where you would plug in your laptop or something. You could plug in your microphones to it and convert those signals to 2110 and send them up the wire via Ethernet in this instance, and that would plug into your little power converter right there. So then you could get those signals. It also has a loop out function so that you can send this to the screen behind you or whatever. So you could record off of that 2110 or route that information anywhere you wanted it to go. But also then it has this function of line in, line out, so that you can use everything there standalone as well. So that's really kind of a cool idea. Ultra monitoring, which gives you the option to do 2110 natively on a screen that's mounted wherever you want it, but typically inside your production booth. So that's very handy to have. Audio metering, 12G over 2110. Now they have one that does SDI. We actually just bought one. This little visual metering thing has really changed our workflow, and I don't say that as a way. I don't get paid to sell BlackMagic products, and I probably should. Matter of fact, that's not a bad idea. All right, well, anyways, I don't get paid to do this yet, but I should become a dealer for them, because I actually have fallen in love with them, and now this 2110 conversation has really piqued my interest. This is an audio meter, and let me just tell you, my sound technician, who is my coworker, Dave, and me operate inside the studio production booth every Sunday. And one of the upgrades we bought him was this 12G SDI unit that allows you to... I need to look at the back of this thing because it might do 2110. Anyways, that allows you to do audio metering, and it shows you can do various audio meterings, by the way, different gauges, but it shows you visually very large what audio levels you're getting. And this has really changed our workflow in a couple of ways. We were using a multi-viewer out of our Constellation to check our audio meters, and every time we checked a video, every time we wanted to verify things on the stream, he'd have to come over, which is only like 3 or 4 steps, but he'd have to kind of lean over into my workspace, which I like Dave, I don't mind this at all, but he'd have to kind of purposely leave his spot and come over and check. And there are various ways that you could fix this. You could add a screen in front of him, you could do whatever. Well, our solution was to actually buy this little unit, which has a little screen on it, and then has these beautiful bright meters on it as well. And so now when he's checking audio and we're playing a video, usually during sound check, he can just look at that and he sees what's going out on the final program. All I do is send him an SDI signal, a 3G SDI signal, out of the Constellation into the back of this unit, and then this unit has a HDMI output as well, so I put a little bigger screen that I wasn't using, a little bigger screen above it, so that he could visually see what was going on, and he could see the audio levels also what's going on, because that's going out to the stream. His house mix is different, so he's doing that live, headphones, everything. But the house mix is not our priority. The priority is what's going out on the stream. And so this unit allows him to visually see a large scale of the audio levels that are going out. And he has a target that he's trying to hit for every single video. Now, in pre-production, I render all the videos, I check all the audio, I know the range I'm going for, I make sure that those levels are getting hit, just like I do on this show. And then I send those out to ProPresenter trades them over. And so when we go to check it, we only have to change it 1 or 2 decibels, and then he is on the fader. So it's a good way of making sure our audio is consistent across every single one of our live streams so that people aren't chasing the audio at home with their remote control. They can kind of set it once, and that audio level is going to be hit every single time because we're sending a consistent sound out to our streaming platforms. So this little audio meter has really changed the way we do things because I send him just a single SDI cable, which is our final program, okay, what's going out of the ME, out of the Constellation, and boom, hitting this little unit, as well as it's going over to Resi as well. Same stream, just 2 different SDI cables. And he can visually see both the audio and the video output easily. This unit also has a little like dial that you have these little nice little speakers on the left and right. And at first I thought they were kind of gimmicky. Quite honestly though, I used these last Sunday. I was just curious and I turned the dial. It's usually set to off, but I turned the dial and those little, what are they, 2-inch, 1-inch tweeters that are in there, they actually delivered a halfway decent sound. I was able to actually listen and see what's going on. Now, we have house sound, we have intercoms, we have lots of sounds going on. So I didn't leave it on, I turned it off right away. But it was kind of a cool little extra function where you can turn it up and listen to the speakers. There's also a headphone jack on there so that if you want to just take your headphones, you're doing sound, you plug them into here, you listen, okay, we're good, plug them back into your soundboard and off you go. This is a great way of looking at the final production before it goes up to wherever you're sending it. All right, these are the cameras we have. We have the 6K version, and so these are the cameras that we've got. This is just a firmware upgrade for these cameras, so that's going to be pretty cool and convenient. We have these EF mount lenses on there. New Ursa Cine 12K. These are not cheap, but these are the ones that have, I believe, just Ethernet ports on the back. There's one that has a 2110 QSFP28 port on it, so cool. Here we go, SDI to HDMI 12G conversion. So we've got what looks like analog. It looks like analog out. It's got 4K out, 1 SDI in, and a loop out. This unit provides color accurate monitoring for OLED TVs. Interesting. For grading rooms and theaters, supports SMPTE 2110 with 3D LUTs, HDMI calibrate. Okay, Features 10 independent XLR outputs, audio outputs for surround sound monitoring, remote level control and customization. Well, that's kind of a cool product. I hadn't seen that one. Let me think about that. Redundant products, converters. All right, so this is that power unit that we just saw. 100 gig, okay? This is that bridge. We would probably be interested in a product like this. This is the bridge for the Ursa Cine 12K 100G units, which I assume are below. Here is an expander rack. This is a SDI in, SDI out. So expander converts 2 directions at the same time, converts 8 independent channels to 12G SDI to SMPTE, while simultaneously converting a separate set. So that's a nice little unit because that basically gives you variety, especially if you are trying to integrate an older SDI system with 2110. This basically gives you 8 in, 8 out. So if you were to get this unit, Studio Bridge, it would also be helpful to have this SDI expander, and then you're basically operational. You know, you can slowly convert your products up to 2110 or anything that's already 2110 using the bridge, and then anything that's kind of legacy, you can run this little 12G converter unit, and you'd basically be up and running. Here's your up-down cross, which is the ability to convert 2110 signals to any other resolution that you're kind of wanting. Here is their Ethernet switch. This one is not, it says P. I wonder if that's for ports or power. First Ethernet switch delivers high performance, low latency. It doesn't say anything about power, so we're not going to, it doesn't look like it's PoE. But, and these buttons on the front, I'm sure you would automate the crap out of those with Companion. Let's go to, there's not much else to see, but there is the cross convert, so you can bring in your switch Ethernet ports and convert them then to 100 gig Ethernet. Here is their BlackMagic Ethernet switch, the 820. This is the 100 gig unit that I think they're thinking this is going to be the core of your system. This is an unmanaged switch for the most part. There's no web interface or anything like that. It's front to back cooling, which is new for networking, but Netgear just announced a bunch of their stuff going front to back as well, which is kind of fun. I'm actually all for it, by the way. Excuse me. Hey, my cough button worked. That's good news. So this little switch is 8 QSFP ports, 100 gig QSFP 28 ports. The thing about this is I'm not sure how they're doing it. The price is about $3,000 or $4,000, but they can't be Triton for Titan or Triton. I can't remember which it is. Titan for Broadcom chips, because it doesn't make any sense. If you're buying those chips from Broadcom, it doesn't make any sense to only do 8 ports. You should do 16, which was a conversation I had with Netgear, which we've talked about here already in the past, is more than likely, for that price point, these are not Broadcom chips. So my question to Netgear was, how are you doing an entry level? Are you going to do a cheaper QSFP switch? Because BlackMagic just came out with one that's $3,000. It does QSFP. And the response was, those can't be Broadcom chips because you're starting at 16 ports and $10,000. That's where you're starting. He said, if I took away ports, I'd merely be taking away $1,000 in port chassis, but the processing power would still be there because I have to buy a certain number of these chips and thread them a certain way in order to put Broadcom chips in my product. So go over and watch my Netgear stream. I explained it a little bit better, but my suspicion is these are not Broadcom. This is not a Broadcom port. And we can do this pretty quick here and just, whoops. Oh, no. Broadcom. Yeah, no mention of Broadcom on the switch page. So they're probably doing their own FPGA and they're probably doing their own Broadcom thing. So, yeah. Hang on here. I just got a message from a friend of mine. Hey, Phil. How are you, man? My friend Phil Lane from the Bird Dog days, probably, if there was a champion of cameras, Phil Lane was that guy. This guy, I met him before he started at Bird Dog, at the Bird Dog booth. He was working it for us from a distributor, I believe. And, man, he blew me away with his knowledge of cameras. And then they hired him at Bird Dog, and he was the lead sales guy in Europe. And what a great guy. If you get a chance, he now I think works for BlackMagic still. I haven't touched base with Phil in a little while. But he reports that he's not able to type in the chat. That's weird. Is anybody else having that? Well, I guess you couldn't tell me. Yeah, that's very strange that you're being restricted. Hey, Phil, if you're watching, go over to my channel. I'm also simulcasting over to my Keystone AV Networks channel. It's a black symbol with a blue logo. Keystone AV Networks. Is that my handle? Yeah, Keystone AV Networks is my handle. Check out that YouTube channel. See if you can subscribe over there, and maybe you can jump in that chat. I can see that one as well. Anyway, so Phil confirmed is still with BlackMagic, and he's the real deal. Everybody, oh yeah, you can see my I'm showing you my screen right there. Keystone AV Networks is the behind the scenes there. Okay, so. Great. Well, if Phil is hanging out, at least he can text me over on WhatsApp and tell me all the things I'm getting wrong. So let's jump back to this switch. So I don't know if this is a Broadcom chip. I'm pretty sure it's not. But that was my conversation between Netgear, because Netgear has a managed, obviously, 4350 QSFP that they just announced, and it's 16 ports. Here is where this is the conversation about that bridge between 2110 and NDI, right? NDI made its fame. No, that's not the right term. Became famous because where is that other BlackMagic converters? Yeah, this one. Okay. NDI was like, oh, we're not 2110. We don't need to, these expensive networks and yada 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 to make ours work. And fair enough. You do still need a network to make it work. So that is it's a little not 100% truthful. And a better network is better than a crappy network. And so the better the network, the better your experience, and on and on and on. Whereas promises were made about, hey, no, you don't have to have a great network. You just throw it on the network. Well, if you want to see it work, sure, an unmanaged network is fine. If you want to use it, then you need a managed network for NDI. So then there's this conversation about, well, you really need a great network to make 2110 work. And BlackMagic has come out with their own switch, which is, again, an unmanaged switch that is, I witnessed it working. We don't know what the long-term abilities of this are, but I witnessed it working at NAB, and I didn't really have, like I said, I saw very little latency. I didn't see them having to fix it all the time or restart things. It was functional. However, the networking part of me doesn't want to have an unmanaged network doing this sort of data transfer. And so I would always lean towards, like, if you're going to invest this much money into 2110, you might as well invest money in your networking switches as well. And a QSFP switch, which would run all of this infrastructure, is about $10,000 or $12,000. So, and that's not getting any cheaper, by the way. Now, there are variations on that switch, but you're going to be wanting to look for the Netgear 4350, M4350 QSFP28 switch, which is this guy, I believe. There you go. Special order, $12,000. No image available. Get out of here, B&H. You're not going to sell any switches that way. The VSM, nope, not this one. It is, where you at here? QSFP, did I pass it? Multi-gig, 10 gig. We're looking for 100 giggers. There we go, 100 gigs. 44 ports with 100 gigs. 1 gig, 10 gig multi. This one, 16 ports. This is the one we're looking for. So the CSM 4316 is the switch we're looking for. We're gonna put that here. Go here. Okay, so it is that one, and that one is, they have it listed right now as a special order. Can't be canceled, can't be returned just because it's not available yet, for $12,000. Look at this thing. This thing is a monster, but it has these ports on the front, and then it also has a couple of ports on the back, as I recall. Well, maybe not, with redundant power. And this was not the one that I thought it was, actually. This thing is huge. Let's go to 100 gigs. What about this one? This one is just purely 40 SFPs with a few 100 gigs. 10. Man, there's a unit. I guess it's this 16 one that I was thinking. This one, which is their latest announcement. But look at the size of this thing. It's got 4 Triton 4 Broadcom chips in there. So this thing is a beast, okay? And this thing is going to be fully managed. You're going to be able to set profiles just like you do inside Engage. This is really going to be something worth investing in if you're going to do 2110. And I think that there won't be any complaints from BlackMagic that you purchased that expensive switch over this one to guarantee results. But time will tell with this Ethernet switch 820. Again, I saw it working at NAB, and it was working just fine. So, not saying it doesn't work, just saying the network guy inside of me might go with a different network switch. That's all. All right, HyperDeck ISO recorders. This is cool. You can bring in all of your 2110 signals and record up to 8 channels, I believe. So, yeah, record 8 cameras all at the same time. That is stellar. I mean, that is a lot of processing and probably generates a lot of heat, front to back cooling. Yeah, that's a big deal. You can record all your cameras in a single unit like this for all 8 of your ones that are plugged into your studio unit, right, that you just bought. Here is the new Constellation 4ME IP 2110 video switcher. You're just bringing in 2110. There's no SDI ports on the back of this, which is a little strange to me. Maybe Phil can help me understand this a little bit more. Why not add 1 or 2 or 4 SDI ports ins on the back of this, right? Because then you could bring in your legacy equipment. They get a little bigger too. Look at the size of this thing. Which this thing is designed for using some very serious studio cameras, but this gives you all sorts of upward mobility in terms of all the keyers, 32 inputs, 28 outputs, all IP based, of course, no IP outputs on the back. However, the one that I'm interested in is the smaller version of this, and I thought they had one. Not 4, but don't you guys have a 2ME version? Constellation? You might. Let me go here. Product line. Which one are we doing here? Video switchers. Scroll down to a 4. Constellation 8K. No, do they not? I thought you guys had a ATEM 2 ME4. Does this guy have the... Oh, do you only have the 4ME version in the 2110s? Because, see, I'm quite happy with my 2ME version. I don't need the massive engine that thing has. But perhaps that's on purpose. Perhaps if you're looking for you're looking to do 2110, perhaps you're 4 ATEM monitoring, Constellation 8K, and that's the end of the list. So Constellation IP Plus. So one of these is $9,000, one of these is 15. Constellation 4K Plus, that's the non-IP version. Yeah, I guess I was thinking that you had an ATEM 2 ME Constellation IP version, which is something I would be interested in because I would be looking to replace, like my studio's not getting any bigger in terms of cameras and requirements and everything, but if not, that's not the end of the world. We can certainly get a converter, and that's all we would need to do, right? All right, so back to this conversation here. These things, this is the Plus version, which gives you tons of additional options. It's also twice the price, or almost twice the price. So, you know, take that with a grain of salt. All right. Onward and upward. There is monitoring options for your network rack. So, you know, color graders and all that sort of things that need to keep a constant check on monitoring. That is a possibility. I'm curious, Phil, I'm just going to take a little breather here and see if any, like, I'm not too sure why you wouldn't be permitted to post. There is no, like, you're certainly not on a whitelist or something where you're not permitted. So I'll have to look at my moderation settings, I guess, because I'm not too sure why you're having trouble posting inside just the regular Jono Canute chat. All right. Moving on to something that is not something that's really on my horizon anytime soon. There's these Ursa Cinema 12K 100Gs. These guys are monsters. They come with, I think this is a 100 gig port. Yeah, faster with a 100 gig Ethernet port. So you could run QSFP directly to it. The thing about this is that they don't have armored cables that you could use to plug in these cameras, but I'm sure that now that this is a reality, this is immersive VR headsets, cameras, lenses, that's on its way. So I'm not too concerned about that because, and maybe BlackMagic will see that gap and say, hey, we need to make armored QSFP cables so that at various lengths so that people can buy them and plug them into these cameras. So there's that. And then they did announce Fairview Live, which they already had Fairview before, right? But Live is now a free software, just like Resolve. DaVinci Resolve has a free version. But this is now turning everything into digital audio, which is really cool. And it gives you professional audio software that you can route all of your audio stuff through and manipulate it just like a soundboard, which is awesome. They also announced physical versions of these as well, which basically are panels that you can control just like a regular soundboard, but it's mostly meant for broadcast. So you're doing broadcast out from games or churches or whatever. Well, now you can buy an actual broadcast board. I would like to see the back, pictures of the back of this. Maybe there's some down here. But you can use it just like a regular soundboard, plug your headphones into it, and you can take all of your digital 2110 audio channels and bring them into your a live soundboard and manipulate them and do your final stuff. So that is a pretty great little invention from BlackMagic. I think actually this is going to have some pretty big ripple effects, ramifications through the broadcast realm, because people are no longer going to be buying old X32s or Midas Behringer wings or anything like that. It's going to shake things up and actually push 2110 into a legitimized space for broadcast, especially people who are conscious of budget, right? Because we need solutions that are real, that are high quality, but are not, killing us on the budget line. It's like, oh, for $10,000 you can mix your audio. It's like, I need something cheaper. And these little units, I believe that they're not very expensive in the grand scheme of professional audio. So that was announced, and honestly, they had these units under glass, so I think that they're finishing developing them, but we could physically see them, and someone would show them to you, like a salesman would come over and show you all of these. So that was pretty fun stuff. Virtual routing, if you want virtual routing, everything's moving to 10-bit broadcast quality, which is super great. And then they are talking about doing redundancy, so you can have two separate networks managed individually, and then if one of them fails, the way they were saying this at the show was the faster we'll take the frame that comes quicker, on whichever network, meaning that it will pick and choose. I can't imagine they'll be switching between networks live, but if your path is faster on one or less busy on one, it would take that network instead of the first. So you can double your installation costs. You could, by the way, use this product and do two different VLANs over it. And so every other port could be, VLAN 10, VLAN 20, VLAN 10, VLAN 20. Or you could do the first 8 are VLAN 10 and the next are VLAN 20, and do redundancy that way over the same backplane, and provide two separate VLANs, two isolated networks, but then take advantage of having these two individual network opportunities as well. So you don't necessarily, if you're buying less than 8 2110 devices from BlackMagic, then you would only need one of these switches to do redundancy networking over VLANs. Now, what if that 16-port QSFP unit dies? Well, then you're dead in the water. You don't actually have redundancy, but you could still leverage these ports, these 100 gig ports, in a redundancy scenario while utilizing this single unit. So there are some spots there where it might fail, especially that one linchpin product that's $12,000. But you could definitely take advantage of having all of this ability, all of this processing power over two individual VLANs. So that might be something to consider if you're looking at rolling out something like that and you want redundancy across your network. So the control for all of this looks very familiar. If you're used to if you're used to BlackMagic products, you're used to the way that the interfaces look. All of this software is downloadable from their website on their support page, and it's all very similar to what you would expect. Much of it, though, feels unmanaged. Like this little product is not really a management product. It's more of a setup product, and then set it and forget it type of thing. So again, if you're looking to manage IP stuff over your if you're looking to manage the IP network in a managed scenario, you'll want to go with something like a Netgear installation and Engage installation. If you don't care about that, or you're only doing one product or something like that, you might consider using something like the BlackMagic Ethernet switcher, the 830, 820. What was it called? BlackMagic Ethernet switch, known as the, I thought it was the 820. 820. Okay, so that is the general idea. It says management Ethernet. The dedicated management port lets you run a BlackMagic Ethernet switch utility software for status monitoring software updates. Again, that is, though, just that little software that you download from their website. It is not, it's not network management like you're familiar with the Netgear stuff that we've talked about ad nauseum. All right, so the 2110 stuff is very interesting, and I want to just kind of explain maybe where we're going to start in on this conversation. Now, first and foremost was all of these announcements are coming in July or later. Last year, we had several of these products that were coming in July that never came in July. But that is the nature of R&D and development of new products, is that you hit roadblocks and snags and component issues and supply chain problems and global diseases and all of that stuff. So we're not going to hold their feet over to the fire like I would a company who is notorious for announcing products and then them not coming to market for 6 months. I will do that fine, but for BlackMagic, for all of this new product stuff, I'm going to give them a leeway of a month or two. All right, so maybe September 1, we're going to see these products actually on the market for real, maybe earlier, who knows. How is this relevant for me? And can we talk about tangible executables that we really are going to try and do? Sure. First and foremost, we're doing some network infrastructure stuff, upgrades to the system over at the soundstage. The first is we're centralizing all of our products and using Adder KVMs to do that. We've talked about that in previous shows, and there are some clips on my channel after today's show that you might be interested in watching. But where do we come to the conversation about 2110? Well, we're already running the Studio 6K EF mount cameras. We have 2 of those. And we're slowly upgrading those lenses. Actually, we're using an 1880 motorized lens, which is on order. Haven't bought it yet. I'll do a show on that one of these days. Take some video, or maybe I'll do a side show on one of those because it won't be a whole show worth. But we already have those cameras, and so we're thinking about getting the Studio Bridge 100G with power. And that would then eliminate our studio converters. We would sell those, probably at a loss. Sell those and move to the single unit that would power both of those. And then we would probably we would get a converter, okay? And we would use, let me go back to this product line here so that I can physically show you the products that we would be using. So we would get a BlackMagic SDI expander, this unit right here. And this unit would then take in 2110 and spit out SDI into our current constellation. So we wouldn't necessarily upgrade or change our constellation, especially because we're quite happy with the way that that's going. So we would get the bridge, Studio Bridge with power, and we would buy an SDI expander, 8x12G. This would give us the opportunity then to convert any SDI signals, which we have many, coming from ProPresenter, Duo deck links. We have, there's an interesting thought as well, is I think I saw a card in here. I'll look at that in just a second. But we would convert our Decklink Duos over to 2110. We would convert our signals that need to go to our constellation over back to SDI from 2110, all of that sort of good stuff. There is a Decklink IP 100G card that apparently is coming out. So here's an option for converting those signals to 2110. It gives you 8 bidirectional channels to 2110. So you could, in theory, then do your key and fill, but also have 6 additional outputs on a single card, which is far more ability than I think I was expecting. But no, I don't know what the price on something like this might be. So if we go to learn more, we say find a reseller. Maybe it's on that page actually. Oh, MarkerTech is a reseller. So capture and playback. Adorama B&H video. So if we jump over to B&H, we say Decklink 100G. That card is running $1,700. That is substantially more than your Decklink Duo 2. Now it's redundant 100G, so that your 2 networks that you're setting up would talk directly and dump it 2110 onto your network. But everything is kind of like $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 just for all of the pieces that you're replacing. So it's hard to justify replacing the card that we currently have with this one, because by the time we buy this one, we'll have spent $2,000 on just converting lower thirds, right? So you have to do it over time. You have to do it one painful change at a time. Maybe if you have 2 of these, like we do, we have 2 Decklink Duo 2 cards. Maybe if you have 2 of those, then you just convert one and you leave the other one as SDI and redundant, And with this little converter unit, which is this guy, nope, I didn't open a page for that. We're doing conversion. This guy right here, the expander, not conversion, but expander. So you could bring in SDI and put out SDI. You could then bring in your two channels here as key and fill, but then you have your other key and fill running over the network. So it eliminates really the need for SDI then coming in, but well, then you would need to come out, right? You need, if you're not upgrading your constellation, that you need to come out 4 of these ports just as key and fill into your constellation, and then you would need cams 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we're already out of ports on this expander. We would need to move our constellation to something that could do 2110 in order to work. So as you can tell, I'm thinking all of this through in real time right here in front of my brain. So it wouldn't make any sense to convert to Decklink Duos 2. It wouldn't make sense to change those because those already go directly into the constellation, into the downstream keyer of that unit. So I would probably leave those. I wouldn't convert the Decklinks, but I would convert the cameras into the Studio converter powers, and I would get one of these, the expander, so that I could output those cameras into my constellation. And then, so you're going to need the switch from Netgear, you're going to need this expander, and you're going to need the studio converter with power. So we're already looking at, I don't know, $15,000 in products, just to make that simple changeover and to slowly start creeping into 2110 IP, if it's something that we want to do. Now, honestly, why do you want to do this, right? In our current scenario, it doesn't really make much sense to give up SDI. Where it makes sense is expandability into the future. You want to try and make yourself fairly redundant going into the future, because I want to add a 2110 unit in the future. I want to add a new camera. I want to be able to plug it into my system and get off and running. I want to be able to take my program out of my constellation and put it into this expander, generate 2110, and send that to my HDMI decoders on the back of the TV. That's what you would use something like this for. You would use the expander to convert it, and then you can plug in those encoders into Ethernet. I'm sorry, those decoders into Ethernet on the back of the studio unit, and tell it, okay, ports 8 and 7 are plugged into the TV, send it those signals, and it would get those signals. So as you start thinking about converting your installation over, yeah, first of all, it's going to be expensive, but 2110 is the other standard when it comes to sending signal around your network without much latency. NDI introduces latency, and so you have to be okay with your IMAG being off a bit, whereas in a 2110 situation, and I don't know the exact figures, it's a lot less than NDI. NDI is noticeable. Like if you have somebody on stage and you're sending an NDI HX3 signal to a decoder on a screen, HDMI decoder on a screen, you're going to see the guy turn his head, and then he'll turn his head on the screen. With 2110, again, all things being equal, it will be a whole lot less. There may still be a delay, but it will all be done over IP, and it'll be less than NDI. And so it kind of is your opportunity, I'll say, to do that. The tech is really compelling, but the price point makes it tricky for churches and smaller operations. Welcome, Stephen. Good to see you. That is how I opened the show. Was NDI is really the answer for small to mid-size congregations or groups who are not necessarily so concerned with IMAG. They're sending their signal out to YouTube, and timing is not of the essence. Audio and video need to be lined up, but audio or video on the stream and video on the screen don't have to be lined up. When we get into talking about IP standards going IMAG, many people are not willing to veer from the SDI world just because that is the standard, and it is identical. You know, you can run a really long SDI cable to a unit on a video wall, and it will be instantaneous. It'll look perfect, practically. It gets really distracting, and there was a an event that I used to go to a couple of years ago down in Florida, or Alabama technically, and on the Gulf Coast, and they had latency issues where their cameras, they had lots of issues with their camera stuff, but they had latency issues where the guy would talk and then his mouth would move up on the screen a second later, and it's just cost. They just didn't have the ability to send that instantaneous up there and buy all of the appropriate units that would provide the zero latency. I don't know if it was the TVs introducing latency, if it was the BlackMagic ATEM that they were using, but the cameras were sending back SDI back to the video switcher. The video switcher was sending something up to the screen, and then the screen was a little slow. So it was kind of distracting to the point where I wouldn't watch it because the audio wasn't lining up with the video, and it was very, very distracting. So having a laggy image sort of defeats the purpose. Agreed. That's actually why have iMag if it's going to be a distraction and not an ad? And that is honestly the answer when it comes to technology in general, especially in the live broadcast realm. If it's taking away from your show, you really shouldn't be doing it. It's like, well, people can't see. It's like, but people are distracted. What's worse? People not being able to see the facial expressions of the person on stage, or them being able to see the facial expressions, but it'd be a second and a half delayed. And so they see it, but it's not lining up, and it's a distraction from what's happening on stage. So I'd rather people focus on the fact that they didn't pay enough for their ticket to get close enough in the concert to see, than them focus on, well, I paid this much for this ticket, but it's so like the visuals are so distracting. And so like, I don't know what the difference, what the payoff is. It's like, well, we do it and it's distracting, but at least people can see. Or we don't do it and people can't really see. They can see what's happening down on the stage, but they can't really see. They're not up close and personal like they're used to being on TV. So, you know, if you go to a hockey game and you watch the whole thing on the big screen, you're kind of missing the game. You're missing the things that are happening on the ice. You go to the game to see it all happen. I've had people say it's so weird because when I go to the hockey rink, I nobody's talking me through what's happening, and it's like, you can see what's happening. The point is for you to see the game unfold before you. Don't watch it on the TV. That defeats the purpose. You know, that's what people are seeing at home without the commentary. Go and watch the game unfold before you. That's why you know, if you want to get up close and personal with the guys, you buy a seat near the glass. If you want to see the game unfold, you buy a seat kind of up in the top first row or up on the balcony front row of the second, and you can see it play out. You can see the guy coming up the side that nobody notices, and the play is kind of unfolding before you. All of a sudden he's there at the corner of the net. Nobody saw him come in, and they pass him the puck, and they, you know, like, that's the exciting part of seeing the game live. Whereas you go to concerts and they put it all up on the screens for you, and it's kind of like, why didn't I just order it on pay-per-view, or why didn't I just watch it on somebody, you know, rip it off on their phone and videotape the end production and put it up on YouTube? Like, kind of, anyway, you go for the experience, and if technology is taking away from that experience, my thought process is you probably shouldn't do it. Anyway, soapbox done. So there you go. Steve says iMag. So that is our conversation through BlackMagic. Their big announcements with the 2110 stuff. It's pretty exciting. Actually, I really like the way that it looks now. Like this like chevron look makes it look really cool on the rack too. So I like that a lot. Ventilation is front to back, not side to side on all products. So that's good to know. Netgear also moved to that mentality, front to back. So if you'll notice here on this switch, their new switch has ventilation on the front, and look at the fans at the back. The fans are pointed out the back. So front to back cooling, which means that now it won't heat up the sides of your network rack. It'll push it out the back door or whatever, however you're managing cooling in your system. Same as a server, right? Servers are front to back cooling. Same thing here, front to back cooling. Whereas the previous switches were side to side cooling, and many network switches, most of the industry is side to side, which is weird to me that we just didn't all decide on one way. So the switching, this AV switching system is now coming over to the front to backs. And I like that. I like the fact that we can manage our cooling all one way, and it might make things more efficient. Who knows? There you go. All right. That's kind of the end of my BlackMagic talk that I wanted to go through. I've got some fun shows coming up in the future. One about Global Cash, which is a company that I found thanks to a friend I made with this side hustle that I do. And he suggested it, and I'm going to do a whole show on it because it has changed my life when it comes to home theater automation, and it's going to be really cool in the new office, which, everybody, drum roll please, is currently being built. The drywall's going in this week, and finally got somebody to agree to come out and put some drywall in my office space. And so, as you recall, I had been busy studying out the office. Let's share some photos here real quick. I was busy studying out the office. This is from the recording booth looking into the office. There was a missing piece of insulation there. I got that taken care of before they showed up. But here's inside the recording studio space. I was putting in the ceiling insulation. There's double layer insulation in the ceiling, so nice and quiet in there. And then this is the recording studio. I had to just stuff some insulation in the side there because I didn't have a piece big enough for that. This is all of that happening. I did end up moving this light right before the guys showed up because it was too high. So in some of these newer photos, here's all that insulation getting done up. Looking all pretty. This is my upstairs storage place, which is going to be a playroom for my kids eventually. So one day, but not today. That's my garage. There's my son taking some shots. Okay, this is the hat channel system that I put inside the recording studio because I wanted to separate. There are 2 layers of insulation in the recording studio, but there's only one ceiling. And so I wanted to put a resilient hat channel where it would absorb some of the vibration coming from the roof and coming out of the room into the roof, because there's 3 layers of drywall here as well. So it's going to be super strong, super thick, but also having this redundant hat channel to kind of absorb any of the final, what am I trying to say? Any of the vibrations coming through to the studs and vice versa, trying to eliminate a lot of that. So there is the hat channel, and here it is finished. Okay, then we had the drywallers come. So this was taken like 3 weeks ago. This was done a long time ago, and I thought I had a guy lined up to come and do all this for me, and the guy didn't show up. He stopped taking my calls. So I found somebody else who was a little bit more expensive, but they are real drywallers. This is all they do, and they've been working since Tuesday. So the roof went in. You can see that I have changed where that light fixture was going to come through, and it's a little far back, but I'm not too worried because I think I'm going to hang a cloud here, and so this is just going to provide power for that cloud. It's not necessarily going to be a light fixture. I haven't decided yet. I might do a light fixture. I don't know. I haven't figured it out. I haven't totally finished yet. But there they were doing the ceilings inside both the office and the recording studio. And then this photo was taken on the 2nd, which was 2 days ago. They've got much of the walls done. There's 2 layers of the walls finished here and 1 layer here you can see at the door. And then this is the office. The ceiling was finished. They just hadn't cut out the spots here for the lights and the fan. Then this is yesterday. They were finishing up. This is noon yesterday, so they had done most of the drywall inside the recording, and you can see 3 layers going in here. So that's going to be a really thick wall. I'm really excited about this. And I was, as you can tell, quite excited. Office was the ceiling was done. They had gotten the holes through for the lights and started mudding, but I think they just had a little bit left over. This was taken yesterday at noon. And then this is another one yesterday. This is yesterday evening, about 5 p.m. Central Time. They had started putting up walls, single layer on the walls. And that's what it looked like from the studio, the recording studio looking out. And then the recording studio is a little hard to see, but now you can see 3 layers of drywall. And they're pretty much almost done and ready for tape and mud. So this room is almost done. You can see how thick that drywall is going to be on the inside. There's 2 layers on the inside of the office and then 3 layers here inside the recording studio. And there'll be a door, which I have not ordered yet, but there'll be a door, 2 doors that will then seal this room up. And then ventilation. That's the last photo I have taken of this space. So drywall really makes things feel like it's coming together, because you can finally start to see some of the space and feel some of the space kind of coming along. So it looks like they've been happy that they looks like they were happy with the way that things were kind of built, because they haven't done a lot of complaining about boxes and whatever, but it is moving fairly slow, and I'm extremely grateful that I decided to not try and do this myself, because that would have been a total disaster and probably a month's worth of work. So I'm glad that I hired somebody out to do that. I have just found a very painful spot on my finger. Nope, that's something. Anyway, so I'm really excited that this is really coming together and should be great. So let's change where you frequently found apply over, and they are. Oh, cool. I mentioned to Phil that. Oh, okay, cool. So the room's coming together, and both the rooms, and I'm really excited. They've been in there playing music. They go to lunch right about now every day. So let's go ahead and pop open. There's some construction going on next door. It looks like they may be at lunch right now. One of their vehicles, they take one vehicle into town, and I don't hear. Oh, I guess I should turn the volume on. Oh, they're there. Yeah, they're working out there right now. Can listen in on my cameras and hear the music. Yeah, there. I don't know if did I have this? I don't have this going out. Here. So yeah, they've been playing music and whatever, getting the job done. So I'm excited for that. Hopefully, usually there's another truck here, but it looks like maybe he's kind of the guy in charge, but he may be on a different project now that they are getting this close to being done. So there's like a 50% chance I'll be ready for paint this weekend, which would be amazing, because I would love to start getting that space prepped. I could do electrical. As soon as a room is done, I can start putting in switches and lights and things. So yeah, if they can get the walls up, and if they can mud tomorrow, mud and tape, then I could start. They could. I don't know when, like, what the plan is, but I will text the guy and find out. And next week I'll have more to report finally, because things are moving along. I'm super excited. I can't wait for this space to be operational, and yeah, it's slowly coming along. So pretty happy with that, guys. And it's going to be the new home of this show. So not only should I be happy, you should be happy too. Hey, I'm looking great. I can't wait to come to Tennessee to record in there. That would be awesome. It'd be great to have you by. Feel free to come along if and when it ever gets done. Hey, oh yeah, that reminds me. So I went away last weekend, and I didn't do a show last week. So there's a reason for that. The reason being is that we went to visit my family in Toronto, and we had a chance to go downtown, and we visited Center Island, which is home of the Centerville Amusement Park for kids, which is amazing for children. If you got kids, feel free to look that up. Well worth the money. You got to go on a weekday, so it only opens on weekends in May, but in June it opens on weekdays. And if you go early in June, that's a helpful time to go. However, the World Cup is being played in Toronto. Parts of the World Cup is being played in Toronto. And so it is going to be busy in June. You're probably not going to be able to find a hotel. So anyways, we took the train down and had a great little, I can show the train picture. We jumped on the GO train on Saturday morning out of Brampton and had a great trip down there. Ended up coordinating things to where we left on Saturday and came back to Tennessee because I have to work on Sundays. And so we left on Saturday evening and flew all the way back to Detroit and then back to Tennessee. But, man, we had fun. And it was a full day. We were home by 11:30, in bed by 11:30, in our own beds, which was unbelievable. You end up taking a ferry across to Centerville. So you get on at the Jack Layton terminals and then go across on the ferry on Lake Ontario and get to the islands. And then we spent the day riding well, they have one roller coaster, but the log ride is a big hit, and everybody enjoys doing that. So this is a fairly safe photo. Everybody loves going on the log ride, so that's a lot of fun. And the kids, I have a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old, so that it's the perfect age for them. I also have a niece who's 15. She's 15, and she enjoys this a lot too. They have a scrambler, they have a log ride, they have a child roller coaster, they have a lot of little cars. They have a train that goes through. Let me find the train. My wife took pictures of it. Not this one. Where's the train? Here it is. So this train is so cool, and in the summers they run 2 trains. So the trains leave every 5 minutes or something like that from the station. In the early summer, spring, really, it leaves every 10 minutes from the station. It's a 10-minute ride, so pretty cool, pretty great. It's an actual train that has cars and very basic, but you sit there and have a nice little run around the park. It goes all the way around the amusement park, including the little zoo. And then we had to go back across. Oh, fun story. I'll tell this story before I'm out. I went ahead back to the ferry to reserve a spot in line past if you're standing past this sign, you're going to be on the next ferry, because we had to make a train and get to the airport and meet my brother and get to Pearson International, go through customs, go through TSA, all that. We had things to do. So we had to leave the park at 2:40, which was when the ferry pulled away and went back to Toronto, put us back in town around 3 o'clock, get on the 3:30, which I think we got on the 3:45 up train that is from Union to Pacific, up Union to Pacific. It's a direct train with 4 stops in between. Perfect for what we needed. And we met my brother at the airport, who was with my mom, and they brought our luggage, and we grabbed our bags and went through the airport, went back to Tennessee. So we needed to leave at 2:40. Well, at 2:25, my wife and kids and family, those who were with us, arrived, and my daughter came up, who's 12, and gave me a hug. I said, okay. I said, do you have your sweater? And she said, yeah, it's in the backpack. And I looked at my son, who's 8, and I said, where's his jacket? And my wife said, does he not have it? And I said, there's nothing on his waist. And she said, buddy, did you leave your jacket in the bathroom at the park back at Centerville? And she said, and he was like, oh, and his face was like, oh no, this is going to be a problem. Well, my niece and I said, where did you leave it? They said, in the bathroom. Well, he's a boy, so I was like, all right, I'm going to run and get it. And she said, the women's bathroom. And I was like, oh my goodness. So my niece, who is 15 years old, I was like, hey, come with me. We got out of line and we started running. Well, it's a 10-minute walk to the ferry from the amusement park, which it usually isn't a big deal, except if you leave something in the park. And so there's only one major bathroom. I'm pretty sure I knew which one they used. So I was like, hey, come with me. And her and I ran and left the group at the thing. Well, we had 15 minutes till the ferry was leaving. It was going to load at 2:30, but the ferry was going to leave at 2:40. So we had to do this in less than 10 minutes in order to get there and get back. So we start running, and my niece is ahead of me. She knows where she's going. She's like, I know where the bathroom is. So she heads off, and we start pacing ourselves. But as we're running, we're getting closer. We're both getting really winded. So I'm not used to this sort of running. So we're both getting quite winded. She ran track for a couple of years ago, so she was kind of used to it. But we ran to the bathrooms. I ran up, I grabbed the door, I opened it, she ran in, and like 30 seconds later she came out. She was like, got it. Had the jacket in her hand. I was like, let's go. Well, I'm getting text messages from my sister, from my dad's phone, from my sister saying, hey, you just got to get back here now. Like, time's up, get back. So we start running, and I'm not responding because I'm running. So I'm not texting her back or whatever. And my niece is now like losing energy. She has run hard all the way for, basically sprinted for 5 minutes. And now we got to sprint back. And so we get running. And I'm finding that actually, like, I'm feeling steady. I'm not going full out, but I'm feeling pretty good. So I grab her hand and I'm like, all right, we got to do this. Let's stay with me. Keep breathing. And I like took the jacket. I was like, you just work at getting back. And so we ran back and made it back before the ferry had finished unloading. And I was so stinking proud that we made that happen, because I have left clothing material at parks and it has stayed with me all my life. Like I lost a hat from Myrtle Beach in Toronto one time, and I've lost a jacket and I was just like, you kind of, all right, leave it. It's gone. You know, like when you know where it is, it's so hard to just leave it there and be like, I'm never going to see that again. And so I didn't necessarily want my son at 8 years old to have that lasting impression of Centerville. So we ran and we retrieved it and we made it back. And luckily, to our advantage, there was a very large group getting off the ferry, and so they didn't actually finish unloading until 2:40. So then we started loading at 2:40, and so we made it back. We had time to catch our breath, and my niece was extremely tired. She wore a sweater, so she was extremely tired. That's my son saying thank you, and giving a hug, being grateful that we had retrieved his clothing attire. But we were very, very happy to have accomplished something at the end of the day, which then we had a 15-minute boat ride back to the city. And then we were able to, have a leisurely walk back through Toronto. And actually a security officer was like, oh, you need to go to the up. There's actually a better way to go. And he sent us up to this crosswalk, which was not being used by anybody. There's my son proudly wearing that jacket we retrieved. And here we are walking through town with nobody in here. That was our group. And nobody in this stretch. Everybody walking out on the street, trying to cross the roads and everything. This was very peaceful. So we went right back to the up train, showed our tickets, got on the up, and it was 30 minutes, and we were at Pearson from downtown Toronto Union Station. So, like, you couldn't drive that, not from downtown. So 30 minutes. That train leaves every 15 minutes as of this recording. The up train leaves every 15 minutes for Union. So if you want to go to Union Station, explore Toronto, you want to fly into Toronto, explore Toronto, and then go back to Union and continue on your journey, the up train is the way to do it. I think round trip tickets are $25 or something like that. So you need 30 minutes each way, and it really really good stuff. So we had quite the journey. Yes, thank you. Hey, great dad, great uncle. Yeah. And the encouragement for the niece, that was also good. It was a good bonding experience. Her and I we will share that forever. The run through Toronto. So anyways, we had a good visit, and it was a great trip. We didn't lose any clothing. And thankfully that story ended happily, and my son still has a jacket. So there you go. And then the sun set while we were on our flight to Detroit, or maybe this is after Detroit. Maybe this is out of Detroit. This was taken Saturday, 8:30. So yes, this is our flight back to Tennessee. And came home. That trip went flawless. Next week, I'll share the story of how we got kind of screwed over on our flight to Toronto. But all that for another day. It is almost noon, so I better go and finish working and help my wife with the kids, who are home now from school, and so is she. So it's been a little different work environment here at the house. Plus, are my friends off to lunch? I hear an engine running, so that might be them. Let's go ahead and oh no, music is still going. So maybe they're working through lunch. I don't know. Normally they leave about now for lunch. So more updates coming soon about the studio space. I'm so excited to move out there. It's actually coming together. Once these guys are done, I got stuff I can do again, right? I was in this like holding pattern. But once these guys are done, now the question becomes, do I buy the HVAC stuff on credit and pay it off over time so I can move in there in the summer? Or do I wait to save the money, which is the Dave Ramsey method, and pay it off or buy it when I have cash? How badly do I want to be in there? It all depends on how much work is coming down the line. So I'm gonna probably have to wait another week or two to figure out when I can buy HVAC. I may buy the ERV system, the air exchange system, and build that system before I can afford the mini splits, but only time will tell. So more on that as I think it through. I'm pretty excited that space is getting drywalled, because that's a big step for us forward into the finality of this space being done. So looking forward to it. More updates next week. Thank you everybody for stopping by. Always appreciate you. Steven, thank you for keeping it going. Randy, I think you probably had to head on somewhere, but always good to see you too. And Phil over on WhatsApp, thanks for stopping by, buddy. Always great to see you. And we should get you on the show over vMix Caller and talk about BlackMagic and what you guys are doing. So maybe in a month or two we can have you check in as a guest, and we could definitely do a dedicated BlackMagic show with a guy that knows what he's talking about. So maybe we'll do that soon. Hey, good stuff, John. I may reach out to you in the next few days, since I've got this order to place for a kit at church. Very cool. Yeah. Let me help you with that. You can either reach me at John, Jon, at KeystoneAVNetworks.com, or hello at KeystoneAVNetworks.com. That both go to the same inbox. So hello at KeystoneAVNetworks.com. Reach out to me and let me know what you're looking at. Maybe we can work on something. So even if you just need somebody to bounce ideas off of, let me know. Let me know how I can help. Always a pleasure. And thank you everybody for stopping on by. Take care of yourselves. Have a great weekend. Hopefully you're looking forward to it. It's going to be a beautiful weekend here in Tennessee. So everything's good. I hope you're good too. Take care of yourselves. Thanks for everything, guys. We'll see you next week.